Somewhere in the Nevada desert, just outside the boundary of one of the most secretive military installations on Earth, there is, or was, a cave shaped like the letter M. A man found it. He said it made his entire body vibrate. He ran. Then the internet dared him to go back. He did. And he was never seen again. Las Vegas gets all the attention, the strip, the lights, the noise, the spectacle. But drive 40 minutes north of that chaos and the city just stops. The desert takes over completely. No casinos, no crowds, just rock and heat and silence so thick it almost has a sound of its own. Most people never go out there. Kenny Veach went out there every chance he got. Kenny was born in Las Vegas in 1967 and spent the better part of his life there, which is its own kind of unusual. Most people treat Vegas as a destination. Kenny treated it as a launch pad, a place to sleep before heading back into the Mojave. The desert wasn't a hobby for him. It was closer to a calling. He would head out alone for days at a time, no partner, no guided trail, just a handgun, a candy bar, a bottle of water, and whatever the landscape decided to throw at him. He documented some of these trips on YouTube under the channel name SnakeBMG. The channel was never huge. His subscriber count was modest, but the people who found it stayed because Kenny had a specific kind of energy that's genuinely hard to fake. He posted videos of homemade gadgets that mostly didn't work. He filmed himself picking up animal bones and describing them like a museum curator who never went to school. One video, he tried to sell himself along with his house, not as a joke, as an actual listing. He wanted someone to buy the property and hire him as the live-in caretaker. That was Kenny, but the hiking was serious. He wasn't performing toughness. He genuinely lived it. He once wrote in a comment thread, "I solo hike across mountaintops that most people wouldn't dare go. I have been in more caves than I can count. He said I play with rattlesnakes for fun." And then, a few lines down, something that feels different in hindsight. "Sometimes I have to scale giant cliffs to get myself out of a jam, but I always make it back. Always make it back." He had written that with total confidence, and for 20-plus years of solo desert hiking, it was true. The terrain he favored was not casual trail country. The Sheep Range sits just north of Las Vegas, a stretch of mountains that rises sharply out of the valley floor, cut through with old mining corridors and abandoned shafts that haven't been mapped in decades. The area sits close to Nellis Air Force Base, a restricted military installation that borders the Nevada Test and Training Range, the same sprawling complex that contains the infamous Area 51. Drones fly overhead regularly out there. The ground sometimes shakes from testing activity. Nobody questions it. That's just how that corner of Nevada works. Kenny knew this land the way some people know their own neighborhood. He had hiked it dozens of times. He knew which ridgelines led somewhere and which ones ended in nothing. He knew where the old mine shafts dropped away into darkness. He was careful, experienced, and by every account, someone who understood exactly what the desert could do to a person who wasn't paying attention, which is what makes what happened next so strange. At some point in 2014, the exact date was never recorded, Kenny was out on one of his usual solo hikes near Nellis, and he found something he had never found before, a cave entrance tucked into the mountain, shaped in a way that stopped him cold. Or the opening was formed into what he would later describe as a perfect capital M. He had found hundreds of caves. He always walked in. That was his rule. Every cave gets entered. This time, he didn't. He couldn't. The moment he stepped toward the entrance, something happened to him that he couldn't explain. His body started to vibrate. Not the ground. Him. The closer he moved toward the opening, the worse it became. And then, for the first time in over 2 decades of solo desert hiking, Kenny Veach turned around and walked away from something. He didn't tell anyone about it immediately, he just went home. But the experience stayed with him, sitting somewhere in the back of his mind while regular life continued in Las Vegas. And then, a few months later, he made a decision that would change everything. He typed it into a YouTube comment. The video had nothing to do with Kenny. It was titled, "Son of an Area 51 Technician," one of those corner of YouTube uploads where someone claims their father worked inside a classified facility and dropped secrets over dinner one night. The kind of video that gets a certain type of person very fired up in the comments. Kenny was one of those people. He scrolled down, read a few exchanges, and then typed something that he probably assumed would get maybe 3 replies and then disappear into the algorithm forever. It did not disappear. That ain't nothing. I am a long-distance hiker. One time during one of my hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me. Within hours, the replies started stacking up. Most of them were not kind. People called him delusional. Some said he was dehydrated and hallucinating. Others said the whole thing was a fabrication, a story cooked up for attention from a guy with a small channel and too much free time. The internet, when it smells something it can't immediately verify, tends to bite. And Kenny got bitten hard. But here's the thing about Kenny Veach. He didn't back down. He pushed back in the comments, described the cave in more detail, gave context about the terrain, about his years of experience. About why this specific encounter was unlike anything he had experienced before. And the more he defended himself, the more people dug in against him. The challenge became louder. Prove it. Go back. Film it. So he did. In October 2014, Kenny returned to the sheep range with a camera and a 9mm handgun. He uploaded the footage under the title M Cave Hike on October 18th. From the opening frame, something feels slightly off. Not dramatic, just quiet in a way that doesn't quite fit Kenny's usual energy. He starts the video standing next to an abandoned mine shaft, narrating calmly, explaining what he's looking for and why. Then he heads into the mountains. He hikes for hours. He explores. He finds other caves, other shafts, other formations. And the whole time, perched on a ridge above him, a black ram watches, just stands there. Hunt doesn't move. Kenny notices it early in the hike and mentions it. The ram tracks his entire route from the high ground, never approaching, never leaving. It's the kind of detail that wouldn't mean anything in isolation. In context, it sits uncomfortably. He never finds the cave. He comes home, uploads the video, and the comments are waiting for him again. More ridicule, more accusations. Some viewers are sympathetic, but the loudest voices are the ones telling him he invented the whole thing and couldn't even find his own fabrication. And Kenny, who had spent 20 years proving himself to nobody but the desert, decides he's going back one more time. He writes it plainly in the comments. I'm going back, this time with a gun. I'll be better prepared. And then, almost as an afterthought, it's something that nobody treated as seriously as they should have. One reply, buried among dozens of taunts, said something different. Not a dare, not mockery. Just this. No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, don't go in. You won't get out. Nobody knew who wrote it. Kenny never responded to it. He started packing for the 3rd trip. The morning Kenny left, nothing about it looked like a last day. He told his girlfriend Sherian that he was heading out for a short overnight trip. 2 nights, 3 days. Standard for him. She had heard it dozens of times before. He would disappear into the sheep range, come back sunburned and satisfied, drop his bag by the door, and start editing footage within the hour. There was no reason for this time to feel different, so she didn't push for details. She didn't ask exactly where he was going, and Kenny didn't offer. He walked out the door on November 10th, 2014, and got into his white Honda CR-V. What he took with him is important. He packed a backpack with basic supplies, enough for a short trip. He brought his 9mm handgun, the one he'd mentioned in the comments. And here's the detail that nobody could fully explain away once it surfaced. He left his video camera at home. The man who had documented nearly every hike for years, who had gone back specifically to film the cave and silence his critics, who had told his audience he would be bringing a GoPro on this final trip, left the camera sitting in his house. Whatever Kenny was going out there to do, he had decided he wasn't filming it. 3 days passed. No call. No message. Sherian waited through day 4, then day 5. By November 17th, a full week after he had walked out the door, she filed a missing persons report with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police. According to Kenny's sister-in-law, Susan, the police did not launch an active search until November 22nd, 12 days after he had left. 12 days in the Nevada desert in November. Signed with no GPS, no camera, and a backpack stocked for an overnight stay. When search and rescue teams finally moved in, they started at the location Kenny had filmed at the beginning of his M Cave hike video, the abandoned mine shaft on the edge of the sheep range. It turned out to be the right call. On November 22nd, Red Rock Search and Rescue found his cell phone on the ground near that same vertical mine shaft. A few miles away, at the trailhead, sat his white CR-V exactly where he had parked it. The phone's location confirmed he had made it out to the area he intended to reach. Beyond that, the trail went completely cold. A camera was lowered into the mine shaft. Teams searched the surrounding terrain across 3 separate operations, with more than 30 personnel involved in total. They covered ridge lines, canyon floors, cave openings, and the brush-choked gullies between. The desert gave nothing back. No body, no backpack, no weapon, no indication of which direction he had walked after leaving his phone behind. And that is the part that refuses to sit quietly. An experienced hiker losing his footing and falling. That happens. The desert claims people who know it well. But an experienced hiker who deliberately leaves his video camera at home, drives out alone without telling anyone his exact location, and then abandons his cell phone, the one piece of technology that could lead someone to him, next to a mine shaft before continuing deeper into the mountains. That sequence of decisions doesn't read like an accident building up to itself. It reads like a plan. Every other time Kenny went into that desert, he wanted to be found. He filmed everything. He posted everything. He shared it with whoever would watch. This time, he made sure there was nothing to follow. The question of why has haunted this case ever since, and the answer, when it finally came, didn't come from the desert at all. It came from a YouTube comment. Months after Kenny vanished, a comment appeared on his M Cave hike video. It was long, detailed, written by someone identifying herself as Sherian Pilgrim, Kenny's girlfriend. She wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't pushing a theory. She was trying to close something that had been left open in the worst possible way, and what she wrote stopped a lot of people cold. Kenny had been battling depression for years, she said. Serious, untreated depression. He refused medication, refused doctors, refused any kind of help with it. He had quit his job more than a year before he disappeared, and the financial pressure that followed had made everything worse. At some point, he had told her something she carried quietly until she couldn't anymore. If he ever decided to end his life, he had said, nobody would ever find him. He knew the desert well enough to make that true. And Sherian believed with everything she had that on November 10th, 2014, that is exactly what he did. She pointed to the camera left behind. She pointed to the phone abandoned by the mine shaft. Not lost, not dropped, deliberately placed there so the GPS signal couldn't be used to track where he went next. She noted that his father had died the same way, years earlier, and she asked people gently but clearly to stop searching for the M Cave, to stop treating his disappearance like a puzzle with a satisfying answer waiting at the end, because she didn't think there was one. A significant portion of the internet accepted that. It is, by every reasonable measure, the most supported explanation for what happened. The evidence points toward it. The behavior points toward it. The people who knew him point toward it. But not everyone accepted it, and this is where the case fractures into something harder to resolve. There are those who believe Kenny stumbled into a genuine accident, a misplaced step near an unmapped shaft, a fall in the dark, the desert doing what the desert does to even the most experienced hikers. The sheep range is riddled with vertical drops that don't appear on any map. It wouldn't be the first time someone experienced was swallowed by that terrain without leaving a trace. Then there are the theories that orbit the M Cave itself, and some of them go further than government cover-ups. A corner of the internet, not small and not entirely fringe, landed on something else entirely. The vibrations Kenny described weren't random, they weren't military. They were the cave itself, reacting to him, pulling at him, doing something to his body that had no physical explanation. People pointed to the shape of the entrance, the perfect M, and argued that symmetry like that doesn't occur naturally in desert rock formations, that the sensation Kenny felt, the full body vibration that got stronger the closer he moved toward the opening, matched historical descriptions of locations where the boundary between this world and something adjacent to it had worn dangerously thin. Portals, dimensional gateways, places where the rules that govern ordinary physics simply stop applying. It sounds like the setup to a horror film. But thousands of people looked at the evidence. The unexplained vibrations, the fact that no body was ever recovered despite exhaustive searches. No, the complete absence of any physical remains across terrain that should have yielded something, and concluded that Kenny didn't die in that desert. He went somewhere else entirely, somewhere the search teams couldn't follow because it wasn't a place that existed on any map. Then there are the military theories, that the vibrations were real, produced by something mechanical operating beneath the surface near Nellis Air Force Base that the public was never supposed to know about. That Kenny found it on the third trip, that whatever was protecting that location made sure he didn't come back. One YouTuber who went searching claimed to find a cave entrance walled up with fresh rocks. Another reported finding what matched the location with a restricted access sign recently placed in front of it. Neither claim has been verified, but both refuse to go away. And then there is the possibility that haunts the edges of all the others, that the M cave never existed, that Kenny, struggling and isolated and slowly coming apart, created something vivid enough to believe in himself, a destination, a mystery with his name on it, and that the internet, hungry for exactly that kind of story, handed him a reason to walk back into the desert one final time. 10 years later, his YouTube channel is still up. Comments still appear on his videos every week. The case is still officially open with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police. His body has never been found. The M cave has never been confirmed to exist, which means one of two things is true. Either it was never real, and Kenny took that secret into the Nevada desert and made sure it stayed there, or it was real. And whatever was inside it, Kenny found it on the third try. The desert isn't telling,